Good afternoon, Yorkshire Classic Cars Limited fans, and welcome to a beautifully sunny day in Retford. It's really sunny out there. The roads are filthy and it's freezing cold, but it's sunny, so Happy New Year to you, and I hope you're having a great one. I thought I'd do another roast. I've been thinking about a roast, and this one is a roast on... I have to laugh to myself. I'm so sorry, you shouldn't laugh at your own jokes, but I have to laugh. This is a roast on people just selling cars, which is what I should have done in the first one. So this is part two. If you saw part one, this is part two, and I hope you enjoy it. I've got a list. I had to make a list of these. Some of these are suggestions a lot of people said, and I think they're really funny. And as soon as they saw me, it's like, yes, that's what I should have had in the video. Ran when parked. Okay, yes, ran when parked. Well, most cars did. Most motorbikes did. Most everything did. It may have run poorly, it may have run terribly, it might have been knocking, it might have been losing oil, it might have not had any oil pressure whatsoever. But it did actually run, it fired up. Well, I'm going to give you a heads up here. Nearly everything ran 40 years ago when you parked it up. The chances of it running now with a fresh battery and a gallon of fuel are pretty blooming unlikely. Every engine wants to run. If it's still got a bit of compression, you can raise a spark, it'll turn over, and you can get fuel into it somehow, then the chances are it will run. But the fact is, just because it ran 40 years ago doesn't mean it was running well, and it doesn't mean it will run again. So it's kind of irrelevant. And as I've said in my last video, and I've said many times before, rebuilding an engine is a blooming sight cheaper than rebuilding the bodywork, which probably is also rotten if it's been stood for 20 years. Quite honestly, if you stand the car for 2 years, the chances of it running like that are really unlikely, especially what modern fuel does to the fuel systems. That one leads into the second one. This is one somebody in part of my other video as well as a comment. Would suit a young mechanic. Would suit somebody retired. Would suit somebody enthusiastic. Which translator means it needs a shed load of work, and you're going to have to be pretty blooming committed to it to get it to ever work again. What most of these cars need is a fully trained and bodywork competent welder, engine rebuild specialist, reupholsterer, and everything in between, quite honestly. If it would suit a mechanic, it's broken, all right? Or if it isn't broken, it's going to be broken because they couldn't get it to run reliably, and it doesn't work very reliably. You pay your money, you take your choice. This one's a doozy. You've all seen it. You've all been on Facebook, probably. You've probably all been around there on the internet somewhere, eBay, selling on behalf of a friend or family member who isn't on Facebook. Now, I aren't really sure what this means. They aren't on the internet. Now, I don't know many people who aren't on the internet anymore. My mum doesn't use the internet. She's 89. She sure as heck isn't selling or buying any classic cars. People generally have the internet, so why are you selling it on someone else's behalf? Is it actually your car? Is it their car? Are they just not wanting to interest? Don't get me wrong, I've had a customer who came here and said, if you could help me sell my car, I'd love that because I just don't want to deal with people. And I get that completely, especially if you're a little bit older and you don't want to get involved with people and you're a little bit nervous. But the fact is, most people have got the interweb. In fact, if you're advertising cars on the interweb, generally you could say who it is or put their phone number in the advert. Are you a dealer? Have you bought the car? This is what somebody said on my comment. Are you a dealer? Is this a car that's been Partexed and really it's too shonky to put on your forecourt? So what you're doing is you're selling it on behalf of a friend because actually you wanted the trading cost to sell a massively inflated, overpriced car that you were going to sell. Who knows? But it's one you see a lot. And I don't actually understand what it's about. But quite honestly, if I'm not talking to the person who's selling the car, what good is it to me? Really? I don't want to talk to his mate. I don't want to talk to somebody who knows something about the car. I want to talk to the person who's actually dealing with it. And having been in sort of similar positions in the years where actually you go down there and you go, yeah, that's all right. I'll have to ring the owner though and say, well, I'll make you an offer. Yeah, you've got it for 10 grand. I'll give you 7. It's not up to me to sell it. Right. So why am I talking to you then? Why am I here? Why are you here? What? Honestly. Leading off from that one, the next one, I do actually have 10 this time, ironically. One lady owner. Right, and what does that mean? Are ladies better drivers than men? Are they statistically? I know allegedly they are. But of course, we all know you can bend statistics any way you like. I'm not trying to offend any ladies watching. I'm not trying to offend any men watching either. But the fact is, if 5 women drive daily and 5,000 men drive daily, then the 5,000 men are more likely to have an accident and therefore become a higher risk than the 5 women potentially. Now, I get into all that huge minefield of sexual discrimination and the like. But what difference does it make that it was a lady owner? I look after my car. My daily driver, it's my van for work, so it does get a bit mucky and scruffy inside, but it's all right. You know, it's not particularly damaged. There's a knock and a scratch here and there on it, but it's in pretty good order. My girlfriend has a car, and it looks like she's driven it through a war zone. She literally hits the wall in it every time she drives up our driveway and when she drives out of our driveway. There isn't a straight panel left on it. Her previous car didn't have a straight panel left on it, and I'm sure her next car won't have a panel straight on it. We aren't going to try to sell her car when she's finished with it. I'm going to put it straight across a weighbridge rather than embarrass myself trying to advertise it. It's literally like a bomb's gone off in it. It's a disgrace inside. It's a disgrace on the outside. She isn't the lady owner I would want to buy it off. Just saying. Now, here's a good one. This one I really like. Immaculate for year. What does that mean? Is it immaculate? Is it like it left the factory? Is it not like it left the factory? Immaculate for year. So does that mean because it's an old car, your immaculate standards drop a little bit? Does that mean that what I consider immaculate has to be a brand new car, but because it's 50 years old and it's absolutely rotten, the paint needs completely redoing, it's covered in micro blisters, the engine is smoking 50 a day, that's all right for its year and therefore immaculate? Immaculate for year is one of those minefields I've always considered. What does immaculate for year mean? Does it mean that actually it's just dog rough, which is what I suspect, and it's immaculate for its year because, you know, it's not a new car anymore. You know, I actually went to buy a car once. Yeah, honest, true story. Went out to buy this car and I said, there's a few dents and knocks and scrapes on it. And they said, well, it's 10 years old. What do you expect? Right, I get you. I get you completely. So immaculate for year. So if it's 50 years old and it's literally written off, does that mean it's still pretty good for its year? What does pretty good for year mean? I don't know at all. That's one of those minefields, isn't it? However, a little red flag goes up and the alarm bells start to ring because immaculate for year sounds to me like it's a little bit of an excuse for absolute, total and utter. Could be wrong. That leads me on to the next one. When you look at the advert, so the advert's been placed on Marketplace, it's placed on eBay, Facebook, wherever the heck it's placed. It's on a forum, it's on a listing, and the car looks really, really tidy. And you think, gosh, that looks really straight and really tidy, that car. It's really clean. And then when you look closer at the photos, because we all do it, well, I do it, you zoom in like that. And then you can see that it's absolutely wet through because they've just washed it. And when you look down at the floor, there's like a ring around it on the floor because it's absolutely soaking wet through. And what did somebody always tell you when you were young? They certainly told me when I was young, never buy a car in the rain. Okay, when a car is wet through, or any vehicle for that matter, a van, a pickup, anything, it will look immaculate. When that car is dried, not so much, okay? A wet car covers our multitude of sins. So when they're advertising it, if they've just washed it, an alarm bell starts to ring, the red flags are going off for me again. The fact is, if you've just washed that car, and then taken a picture and not left it to dry, why is that? And that's usually because it's a shed, isn't it? If you'd have left it a little bit, you could have chamoised it off. You could have chamois leathered it off. You could have dried it. You could have let it dry naturally and then given it a wash and a polish. That's what I always do when I clean a car to sell. I wash it, I polish it, I cut back the paintwork, whatever I have to do. But I make it look tip top. And in those pictures, it's dead honest. Because I never want somebody to turn up and go, oh my God, when they get out of the car, that's an absolute dog. So if that doesn't ring alarm bells, or if that isn't the biggest lie when you're selling a car, is that the fact that it is absolutely wet through. You see it on wheels, you see it on panels, you see it on cars. The other thing with panels is you go to look at a panel and you look at this door and you think, oh, that's a lovely looking door, is that? But All the inside's just as it came off the car, but the outside's just got a quick rattle can of paint over it. So a quick, with a little bit of primer on it. Why is that? That is because they're pulling your pants down again. That is because it's red rusting, they've flattened it down a bit, and because it looks an absolute disaster. Okay, you brought me down to it. The most ding-dong, alarm bells ringing, red flag flying, nightmare thing to put on a post, right? You're all going to agree with me, I guarantee it. Barn find. A barn find car. I found this in a barn. Well, big deal. What you've found is a lump of scrap somebody parked in there 50 years ago that the rats have just about finished eating. It's rotted away because the barn was a Dutch barn. It doesn't have doors on it and it was wet through. In fact, you parked it in there because it was rotten in the first place. I bought a barn found car once. Somebody was losing their storage in a barn. I bought it and I swear to God, everything was rotten in that car. The suspension was literally falling to pieces. It wasn't just, I was told it needed a pair of sills. It needed a lot more than a pair of sills, I can assure you, than that. Oh, it just needs a pair of sills and they come with it, but otherwise it's immaculate, low mileage. It had all the gems in it. So I went and bought it sight unseen, believing that it'd been stored in a barn for the last 10 years. Oh yeah, it needed everything. When I started it running, you could see the water running out the head gasket at the front. It was a disaster, and barn finds these days generally are. We all dream of finding a barn find. We all dream of somebody saying, I've got an old car in this barn. Some chap or lady say to you, I've got this old car. I wonder if you wouldn't mind coming down and having a look at it. When you get there, there's a Bugatti Type 49. There's a Ferrari 250 GTO. There's an E-Type, you know, that raced at Le Mans. There's a GT40. There's something, an AC Cobra. There's something beautiful in there, something rare and desirable. And it's immaculate. All it needs is a blooming good wash, and you just kick her in the guts and click, click, boom, off it goes. And those things do exist. They are out there. Although this, I'm going to anecdote again on here, and I'm sorry, but I'll apologise in advance. I didn't believe, having watched things like Shed and Buried and stuff like that, I thought that all those shows on TV were set up. I didn't believe that there were still cars parked in barns and sheds and here, there and everywhere all across the country that were waiting to be restored. And then when I worked for Yorkshire Triumphs, we went out and bought cars in barns and sheds and stables and all over the place that were waiting to be restored. Most of them were rotten. Most of them needed a lot of work. Some were okay. Some were good, but still needed work. But they are still out there, believe it or not. The chances of you finding a barn find vehicle that is still absolutely tip-top and solid. Barn find used to mean that you found this car in a barn. It's usually rare and desirable if rotten and needs significant amounts of money spending on it to get it right. Or it was absolutely immaculate and just needed a blooming good clean and valet and it would probably be all right. You know, it might need paint, but other than that, it'd be all right. Nowadays, they stick an old car in a barn and expect to get an absolute premium for it. We've all heard the tale about the barn find dust. This is barn find dust I sprinkle on all the cars in here. I get it from a barn, I just sprinkle it over just to raise the value for when the customer comes to pick them back up. The fact is, keep your shonky car. I don't care if it's in a barn. I don't care if it's in a council garage. I don't care where you found it. It's still a rot box. It's still a TURD. It just isn't, you know, anything. You need to really sort that out. But now it seems commonplace that everybody's found a barn find car. And that's great. But unless it's something desirable, who cares? Whilst I'm on my soapbox about barn finds, here's one that I'm going to get. This isn't necessarily pointed at sellers. This is pointed at everyone. The old adage, and this is just a bit of a tangent, but you may or may not agree. And feel free to comment, obviously, as ever. Got a lot of comments on the last video, and it was great. Some of them were really funny. I do try to reply. But the last one is, on this section, is built, not bought. Now then, when somebody looks at my car, that's built, not bought. Now, it's a little bit of a cheat because I restore cars and work on cars for a living, so it's less of a challenge for me. But all my cars have always been built. So when this car was built originally, my Capri, it was built on my driveway. I didn't even do it in the garage. I didn't paint it in the garage. I painted it myself. I wired it myself. I built the engine myself. I built everything myself. I made the suspension bars, made the exhaust. I made, I fitted the wheels. I fitted the tires to the wheels. I did everything pretty much. The only things I've ever found out are rolling road tuning and MOTs. And to this day, I still try to do that. And that car is built. You know, I'm making up water pipes out of old water pipes. I'm, you know, making adapters and welding them together. And I've wired the ECU loom. I've wired the car. I've wired everything. A lot of parts have been bought, but those have to be modified and machined and blah, 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 blah. I made my own windows, made my own, you know, I painted it myself. So most of it is built by me. I fitted the LSD, did it myself, shimmed it myself. Okay. But now I'm an expert. I have a garage. I do restoration work. I do classic car work. So that's a little bit. But what gets me is when you say built, not bought. Yeah, well, yeah, it is built, not bought. I get that. But did you build it? Because quite honestly, if you're paying me or someone who does what I do to build your car, labeling it built, not bought is a little bit of a blowing lie, isn't it? If I say that's built by me, it is. If I build this Rover up, or the Vega, or the X19, and they say built, not bought, well, you kind of paid me to do it. That's not built by you, is it? That is bought. So, you know, if you have your car restored and then label it built, not bought, that's just a plain lie, isn't it? If you do it yourself and do all of it yourself, or most of it yourself, I appreciate not everybody can do everything, then that's built, not bought. But if you therefore label it built, not bought, but you paid someone else to build it for you, paint it for you, do the bodywork for you, it's not built by you, is it? It has been built, but you've bought the building. So, right, last three. First one, private registration worth a fortune. Well, that's great. Thank you very, very much. Well, so am I buying it for the reg or am I buying it for the car? Because quite honestly, if the vehicle is an absolute bag of you-know-what, then the reg doesn't really matter, does it? You know, right now, my car has a semi-private reg. Somebody once said, oh, that's private reg. It's ARY. It says Harry. Right. To a blind man on a galloping horse, you know, it's WXF. That's a private reg. Well, not unless your name's Wixford, is it? Really? Do you know what I mean? You have to kind of be a bit... Now, I know a lot of private registrations are imperceptible to certain people. Yeah, to most people, you can't actually work them out. You know, it'll be your initials or whatever. And I get that. And if you're happy with that, that's fine. I don't do private registrations. I think they waste time and money. But the fact is, if that's what you do. But there's a couple of issues with the private reg on it. One, all old cars have what's considered a private reg these days. Two, if it's, you know, if your initials are ZXY, well, then maybe that's great, but I don't think they are. Three, private reg worth £1,200. To who? How do you find that? Oh, just do it on one of those searches online and they'll tell you what it's worth. But they kind of don't, do they? And if you do, they sort of value everything at 100 quid. I don't see as that's any point whatsoever. If you're going to restore it, well, who cares what the registration number is on it? As long as it's an original reg for the car and it hasn't got an A reg or a Q reg. But the fact is, if you're then buying the car to transfer that reg, bear in mind you have to have an MOT on it. Now, people in the UK are going to go, yeah, MOT exempt. I don't care whether it's saying MOT exempt or not. If you look on the .gov website, you need to have an MOT on any vehicle to transfer the reg, and even then they may not let you transfer it. So saying it's a private reg to increase the value, I'm sorry, no. Unless it's something really perceptible like ELV1S, for example, which I know when I worked at the DVLA auction sold for an absolute arm and a leg, you know, PAT3L, something like that, something that's a name, you know, then that's going to make a lot of money. LOU1S, something like that, that's going to make a lot of money. But the fact is, you'd have already sold it if it was. And if you could get it off that car, you'd have already sold it anyway, wouldn't you? Next one, this is one my dad told me about years ago. Runs perfectly, starter motor's failed. Now, I hadn't seen this for a lot of years. This used to come up all the time. Starter motor's seized up, won't turn over, won't start. Yeah, you know why you're putting that, because the engine is absolutely goosed. If it does actually start, there's no oil pressure, it's probably thrown a rod. The big ends are knocking like a pianist on beer. The fact is, the engine is absolutely solitary goose and you've just pulled the wire off or snicked it. I've been to see cars like that. It would start, but the starter motor's gone and the wire's pulled off the back. alarm bells are ringing. At that point, I just walk away. We all know that can be a lie. It could be true. I did buy a car once when I bought a car off a friend at the auctions when I worked there. He said the starter motor's fried. It was a CV8 XR3i. If you know anything about those, the starter motor on a CV8 front-wheel drive car sits within about that far of the exhaust system, and the exhaust basically cooks it. And a new starter motor was 45 quid, which was a lot of money to me back then. Put a new starter on, click, brum, ran perfect. Didn't idle, wouldn't run, kept cutting out. And it ran like a bag of chisels. I had to change plug leads, coils, fast idle valve, and a lot of other things. But it did actually run okay. The engine wasn't cooked. And I didn't realise. I said to my dad, I said, I've bought this car. Would you nip me back to the auction so I can pick it up? We'll tow it back and I'll put a new starter motor on it. And he said, oh my God, you haven't bought a car that's starter motor failed, have you? And he went, yeah. He went, you know what that means? So I said, what? He said, when you get it started, big ends will be knocking. I went, oh, shush. No, he promises me it isn't. He went, why would anybody ever lie? So yeah, that's one of the old chestnuts. And this is your last one. I think this is 10. It probably is. It probably isn't. It could be. It might not be. But I may think of some more. And hopefully you're going to comment some more when you've watched the video and you've had a laugh. Last one, special edition. Now this is a classic. I know in the UK, I don't know about in America and Australia and Canada and places like that. But the fact is, in the UK, we used to get a lot of special editions. Minis. I had a Mini Clubman. They were a different body style. But then later to that, they started with the Mini Mayfair. They started with the, oh my goodness, the designer, was it a Vivienne Westwood or something like that? They had a Mini 1, they had a Mini this, they had a Mini City, they had a City E, they had, you name it, they had a special edition. There were millions of them. It was really rare about these special editions. The Piccadilly was really nice. I had a Piccadilly, it was gold with a different interior. There was nothing special about it. It didn't go any faster, it didn't stop any better, and it certainly didn't rust any less. There were millions of them made. There's nothing rare about a special edition. They make special editions to sell cars that nobody wants. Things like Capri Lasers. The Capri Laser was a special edition. Nothing particularly special about it. It had a slightly different trim level and different alloy wheels. That was pretty much it. And different body stripes. A lot of Ford Capris, I know Capris obviously, a lot of Ford Capris just had body stripes on them. And that was kind of the special edition. So the S had a different body stripe and different seats and different wheels. The Laser had similar stripes, but different alloy wheels, but similar, and different interior, but similar. There was millions made of these special editions. They aren't worth a huge amount. A Capri 2 litre S, yes, probably is worth quite a lot nowadays because there aren't many left. But then there aren't many ordinary Capris left. There aren't many LSs left. There aren't many other cars left, but the special editions, the Calypso, the Cabaret, stuff like that, there was nothing special about them. They aren't worth a fortune. Even if it was a super rare special edition, the chances are it was that rubbish that nobody blooming bought it. So why would you want to own it now? You want a nice classic car that you can be proud of, not something that says Cabaret on the side, but actually is just a shonked down lazy, you know. Special editions were made just to sell cars. Just special editions do not increase value. You can try, and I don't knock you for trying, that's fine, but the fact is, why would it be worth any more? And the best one of the lot that's just come to me as I've been talking about it is saying it's a special edition, and then back in the day, you used to be able to get lots and lots of vinyl graphics when they were kind of new, and there'd be a little script that said, special edition with a body stripe on it, and that used to get stuck to just about everything. If you've uncovered one of those on your car, the only extra value in that car is the £1 it costs to put that sticker on. So that's it. That's the end of the video. Please comment if you've got any more of these that I can put into another video, because I do enjoy having a good rant and a good moan. I am debating starting another channel completely just so I can rant and moan, because I came up with some good stuff the other day. My girlfriend went, ooh, I don't know if you should say that. I said, well, you know, some stuff's worth saying, I think. Obviously, I like to keep this car related because this is what it is. It's all car related. So if you have any comments, please leave them. If you've enjoyed it, please like. If you want to see any more of my videos, please have a look through my back catalogue, and please consider subscribing. I do lots of this sort of stuff. Sometimes I have a silly rant. Sometimes I actually do stuff on cars. Enjoy.